For those of you who aren't familiar with it, Formtastic is our document design and modernization solution for IBMI. Our last session was focused on integrating Formtastic with your ERP system. Today we'll be looking at Formtastic's check and ACH payment support, and our final installment tomorrow at noon, that'll focus on labels and barcodes. You can register for these and more on our website at quadrantsoftware.com/webinars. In addition, you can view any of our past webinar presentations from that same page. Now, before we get started, just want to go over the webinar tool that we're using. Go to Webinar. You should see an option to ask questions in the bottom of your GoToWebinar client. If you have any questions, please use that window rather than the raise hand option. We won't be answering questions during the presentation or the demo at the end, but we will have a Q&A session afterward with our tech team. Now, what you're going to learn on today's presentation is how Formtastic can help you modernize, automate, and reduce the cost of your IBMI application initiated check printing and payment distribution processes. My name is John Yoick. I'll be your presenter today. I'm the brand manager for Quadrant Software. I've been with Quadrant for 3 years, and in my time here I've gotten to see the various ways that customers use Formtastic to modernize their IBMI-generated forms, checks, and labels. Quadrant Software is an IBMI document distribution and design solutions provider with over 20 years of experience in the marketplace. We were founded in 1990 in Boston, and we have over 10,000 customers worldwide with an award-winning 100% customer satisfaction rating and a 98 Net Promoter Score. Here's a brief overview of today's presentation. We're going to review some of the major challenges businesses face with IBMI spool files. Then we'll talk about how to overcome some of these challenges with a brief overview of Formtastic, and we'll take a deeper look at our check and ACH payment functionality. We'll take a look at check types and templates, printing and distribution, ACH payments, CCD Plus for HIPAA compliance, and we'll look at signature capture techniques. Then we'll have a brief demo where I'll show you how easy it is to work with the Formtastic checks in our PC-based design editor tool. After that, we'll have our question and answer session at the end with our tech panel, Deb Walsh from Tech Support and Ken Glansberg from Professional Services, who will be waiting patiently in the wings. Now, please feel free to submit your questions during the presentation, but we'll wait to the end before we answer them on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, today's presentation is scheduled to run for 30 minutes, but we do have a lot to cover, so we may run over 5, maybe 10 minutes at most. So let's get started by quickly reviewing some of the major challenges with spool files. Companies today rely on IBMI-generated spool files for the critical documents, like invoices, checks, labels, product lists. It could be a document generated by your ERP application, or it could be generated by your own custom application. Unfortunately, most IBMI documents generated from spool files are plain text. They can be hard to read. They may not reflect your company's brand. You can't have logos, images, colors, or different fonts. And one option is to manually copy-paste the data into a new document, but this is a time-consuming effort. And so is modifying the report or application. In fact, recoding applications to format a spool file can be a very time-consuming development initiative, and in some cases, your spool files are being generated from a bundled, pre-packaged application that simply can't be modified. Now, once the document is created, you still have to worry about manually distributing and archiving. So Formtastic can help you overcome these challenges by enabling you to modernize your IBMI documents and automate distribution, as well as reducing costs on pre-printed forms, checks, and wasted papers. At a high level, Formtastic pulls your spool file out of your output queues, merges it with a pre-designed template, converts it to a PDF or TIFF, then distributes it to the intended recipient or recipients, and creates a copy for archiving. It supports a large number of document types, including forms, checks, and labels. The Formtastic Formatter module allows you to reformat the source spool file to create a new, better formatted spool file. You can remove empty space and blank lines, concatenate lines to reduce print area and page count, and reformat the spool file layout for better usability. Now, Formtastic allows you to design customized, professional, and polished overlays in a PC-based editor. These overlays are automatically merged with the spool file as they are generated in IBMI. You can add graphics and branding such as company logos, customer logos, different colored fonts, tables, headings, boxes, lines, barcodes. Object data can be set to appear based on conditional rules. You can merge in images and signatures into your form. Formtastic can integrate with standard and untethered signature capture devices. Then it automatically merges the image back into the form before saving and distributing. You can also set up Formtastic to automatically retrieve additional DB2 data based on field data in the actual spool file without recoding. Formtastic can take the final document and output it in PDF or TIFF format. Then it can automatically print, email, and archive in a simple directory or file it away in your document management system, such as Gauss, IntelliChief, RVI, Vanguard, Westbrook, or any other custom document management system. Here are some additional features that Formtastic supports. We've gone over a few of these already, but there's a few more I think you'll find interesting. You can set up conditional rules to change images based on location, company division, or any other spool file data. You can set it up to automatically include a signature, but have those signatures only occur when certain conditions are true. Maybe your purchasing manager wants to manually review and sign every purchase order over a certain dollar amount. Well, you can do that with Formtastic. You can also add barcodes, and of course you can set up distribution and archiving rules. And of course the beauty behind Formtastic is there's no coding required to implement any of the functionality that we've talked about. It's actually very easy to create and manipulate the design templates, and you'll see how easy it is in just a few minutes on the demo. So now let's talk specifically about how Formtastic can help modernize your check creation and distribution process. The most common types of checks generated by IBMI applications are accounts payable checks and employee paychecks, and you do also see the occasional workers' comp check. In many cases, IBMI shops print their checks in-house. Here's a simplified example of how this process usually occurs. The IBMI application generates the spool file, which is sent to the printer. The printer is loaded with pre-printed check stock. The check stock is customized to include the organization's information, including the company name, address, bank account, and routing numbers, and check number. These pre-printed checks can be significantly more expensive than blank check stock, on the order of 80% more. In addition, keeping pre-printed checks on hand can increase your risk of check fraud. It makes it possible for an unscrupulous employee to steal a blank check, forge a signature, and deposit it. The best way to prevent this is to keep your check stock secured, which can be a cumbersome task, or you can start printing your own checks using blank check stock, which actually is a cheaper way to do it anyway, so that's usually the best option. We'll talk about how to do that in just a few minutes. So once the check is printed, you still need to worry about manually distributing it to your payee. This is typically done by an employee manually picking up the check off the printer, stuffing it into an envelope, and then either hand delivering it to an employee on-site or mailing it to an off-site payee, whether it's an employee or a vendor. This can be a time-consuming task, and if you're distributing a large number of checks each month, postage and human labor can become quickly expensive. So with Formtastic, we offer a huge number of pre-built forms, checks, and labels. That's part of our Forms Pack offering. We can integrate with any IBMI-generated spool file with a simple GUI drag-and-drop mapping. Many of these templates are also pre-mapped to directly integrate with popular ERP systems. These include all the common ERP-generated forms like invoices, statements, packing lists, in addition to tax documents like W-2s and W-9s and 1099s. I'm sorry, not W-9s, 1099s. But since we're focusing on checks for this presentation, I'd like to highlight our checks pack, which contains a large number of pre-built check layouts. The checks pack includes actually 28 pre-designed check templates, including accounts payable checks, employee checks, direct deposit, and workers' comp. Here's an example of what some of our many check templates look like. Here you can see how we have set up nice looking graphics, tables, boxes, lines, and different font types, colors, supported across a wide variety of layouts, the standard portrait layout with remittance data at the top, and a 3-up company check if you want to actually just pre-print blank checks and have them available. You can still do that with Formtastic. So in contrast to printing checks with expensive pre-printed check stock, which you have to secure, with Formtastic, the check spool file will automatically merge with your template file to create a final merged check file. This can then be printed on inexpensive blank safety check stock. You can also archive a copy of it in PDF format for your records on a secure network folder if you desire to do that. When you do that, if you're creating the checks using our signature capture and merge functionality, which I'll show in a minute, the archived copy will not include that signature for obvious security purposes. Now, when dealing with application-generated checks, we need to be able to handle all of the important fields and data. With Formtastic, you're able to define, control, format, and edit all of the important data, including the payor, the payee, bank account information, check number, the amount, remittance information up in the check stub. You can even map in signature images, which, like I said, we'll talk about here in just a few more minutes. Another really cool thing you can do with Formtastic's Formatter module is reformat the actual spool file to use more of the check stub space. Now, this is particularly useful for accounts payable, where you have a large number of remittance items on a single check. Now, most check printing programs can only utilize the top portion of the check stub for remittance information, leaving a large area of blank space. For checks with a large amount of remittance information, this can lead to overflow pages and wasted paper. Now, Formtastic allows you to effectively cram more remittance data into the check stub, which can reduce the number of pages that need to be printed. And in cases where you still end up with overflow pages, you can set Formtastic to print these overflow pages on plain old cheap printer paper rather than your expensive more expensive, less than pre-printed, rather than printing it on the blank check stock. And then you can have it set up to automatically collate the overflow pages and the page with the valid check all back together. You can do this as long as the printer supports multi-tray printing. So here you can see we went from a single check that required 3 pages to print to a single page check with all of the remittance information in the one check stub. Now, Formtastic customers who switch from pre-printed checks to blank safety stock can significantly reduce their costs. Most have saved 80% or more on every check issued. It's typical for our customers to see a return on investment in a matter of a few months. Using blank check stock is not only more cost-effective, but it's more secure. A large portion of check fraud cases occur simply because pre-printed check stock is available, which can be stolen or replicated with the information. Now, with blank check stock, it's just blank paper. There's no way to steal or replicate the check, which is going to reduce your risk of check fraud. And again, we support secured, a really cool secure signature functionality that uses an encrypted digital key, which I'll show you here in just a few minutes. It will allow you to run your check batches and automatically merge in your signature, so you don't have to manually sign all your checks, but it also enables you to keep those signatures on a secure flash drive, which you can physically secure, and it's just a lot easier than managing large reams of pre-printed check stock. So in contrast with basic in-house check printing, where you're limited to manually printing checks and delivering via manual or manually hand delivering it or via mail, Formtastic allows you to submit electronic payments via the ACH network. These payments can be set up to occur automatically when a check spool file is generated, or you can run them manually. And just some quick background on the ACH payments. They're electronic payments made through the automated clearinghouse network, which allows banks and other financial institutions to quickly and easily clear electronic payments. Now, something interesting about the network, it's phenomenally large. In fact, in 2012, approximately 21 billion transactions with a total value of nearly $37 trillion were processed via ACH. Using this method of payment as opposed to paper, checks, or credit card payments can help reduce errors, speed things up, and save money and resources. Now, Formtastic can process ACH payments. To process one, Formtastic actually pulls the necessary information right out of the spool file, such as the company, which would be the payor, and the recipient, or the payee. Additional information for these fields, like the bank account number or routing number, is stored in a DB2 table that automatically populates into the ACH payment. That way you can maintain a tight control over your payment information. And if something changes, like say your bank account number changes, then changing the template's very simple. All you do is you go into the DB2 table and you update the bank account number entry. After all the data is populated from the spool file and the related DB2 files to create the ACH payment file, it's submitted and transmitted to the ACH network. On top of since we're on the topic of electronic payments, our latest version of Formtastic will support the new CCD Plus addenda records. Now, under the Affordable Care Act, all healthcare plans are now required to comply with a new healthcare EFT standard. The new regulation requires health plans to offer electronic funds transfers, reimbursement payments to healthcare providers in a standardized format, which includes an ACH CCD Plus addenda record. The addenda record provides the payment receiver with remittance data associated with the payment. And the next release of Formtastic, which is scheduled for August, will fully support these requirements. Now on to signature capture. Formtastic allows you to integrate with signature capture devices automatically to merge your signatures into your check before printing or archiving. You can also store your signature either in a DB2 table in your IFS, or you can secure it on a USB storage device, which contains an encrypted digital key, which is effectively a PCL print escape sequence, which you can set Formtastic to require prior to generating and printing the pre-signed checks. So when you need to do your check run, what you do is you plug in this secured flash drive with the signatures pre-installed on it. You plug that into your printer. You print your checks with your signature automatically included on each one. And when you're done printing, you pull the USB plug out and you put it in a locked cabinet or in a safe. Now, Troy printers makes a very high quality printer and a secure digital key that we do a lot of work with. But there are a number of other printers available that support this secure digital signature key functionality. Our customers really like that they can run all of their batch checks at once without requiring manual signing, and while being able to keep their digital signatures on a secure encrypted storage device that they can easily secure. Now, that said, going back to this previous slide, the DB2 table that on your IFS that stores signatures, that is also protected using standard DB2 user permissions. So while the DB2 stored signature merging functionality is secure, the USB secured key merging technique is very secure. So I just thought I'd let you know that. You can do it either way, but both would be secured, but the USB key is much more secure. So anyway, moving on. Let's see, what time do we have? We are at, by my clock, we're at 12:21. So I'm going to go ahead and do a very brief demo of the Formtastic design editor. I have a template for checks already set up. So let me close out of this. Okay, so here we have our Formtastic document editor. On the right-hand side, we have the spool file, This would be a spool file coming from company Java Express and being paid to XYZ vendor. We have some remittance information up here at the top. Amount, we have a check number here, a date. This is actually a pretty old sample spool file, but we find it still comes in handy for demos. And then over here on the left side, we have the design and the layout of the check. And if you'll notice, we have the spool file that's been populated. And as I select each area, it highlights the selected spool file that we're pulling off of and bringing into the layout over here. So just wanted to show you a couple features of this. This is our standard design editor, which gives you the functionality of adding boxes and lines, and you can do all sorts of cool things with them. You can change the way they look, conditions, to where they'll only appear when certain spool file data exists or does not exist. You can change the color. You can change it to be rounded, shaded, all sorts of cool things. But I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. Also show you real quickly, we can do lines of different types. You can change, again, the width, size, and color of all that. But I'm going to Control-Z to undo that, because what I really want to show you has to do more with specific to checks. Real quick, I'll show you how we just simply we select the spool file data, drag it, and bring it into the layout. We click Create Text, and there we go. It dumps it right in. I can use the arrow keys to move it, or I can line it up in the middle using these. Over here on the right-hand side, we have some align functionality. So I'll align it there, and it looks like it's not the right size, so I want it to be the same text type as, say, this field here. What text is that? That's Courier 12 CPI. Let me change this to that. Courier 12 CPI. There we go. Oops. We need to realign that. All right, we're aligned. Okay, so what I'd like to show you now is the check command feature, and the check number command feature. And what that does is it tells Formtastic to, when a spool file is created, it tells Formtastic to, okay, Formtastic, look over here for look in the spool file for a check number. If you find that, use that check number as the check number. If you don't find that, then generate a check number from the existing DB2 table. So that way, Formtastic can intelligently decide whether or not it's going to use a check number that's existing on the spool file, or if it needs to look up in the Formtastic check table to generate a new check number. So that's one feature there. Then we also have something called the payee command. And let me show you that. What that is that allows us to identify the actual payee attributes, who this will end up going to. So this may or may not, we can decide whether or not this is going to display here, but we can also tell it to, excuse me, that when it generates the check to include their name either from the spool file here or from a DB2 lookup table. So it can look up, say, like a customer name, or it can look up a customer number and pull in additional information right into Formtastic. So a couple more things I want to show you that we can do here before we hop onto our Q&A session. We can add images. We'll just add in a quick little image. There would be, say, like a company image, and it's a little large, so let's shrink it down a little bit. We've got it resized a little nicer now. And the last thing I want to show you is the signature information. So we talked earlier about how you can have conditions set up to where, excuse me, objects only occur based on certain conditions. So say, for example, on these checks that go out, you want to manually review and sign every check that is above a certain amount, let's say $1,000. Well, what you do is once you tell Formtastic to go out and grab this image, this signature image for every check that's generated, what you'll do is you'll go in and set the conditions to only occur, let's open up this, only occur when this check amount number, and we've defined that as this value here, which is the total amount, we want the signature to only show up when that amount is less than 1,000. So in cases where this value is less than 1,000, the signature will populate. But in situations where this amount is more than $1,000, this signature image will not populate into the final form. So let's take a look at the print preview to show what it'll end up looking like. So this, because we've got more than $1,000 here, the authorized signature does not automatically populate, and it will need to be manually signed. So that about wraps up the design editor demonstration.